David Friesen is live with you now in the Bright Moments Cafe. That trio with Randy Porter and drummer Alan Jones that David had was about at the midpoint of his career, a career that got rolling when he got out of the Army in 1964 and found some like-minded musicians in Seattle. And within a few years, he'd started the touring that has come to define David Friesen's life in music, although he does love to be home, and he's always in Portland for a series of Christmas concerts that came out of a musical partnership with pianist and singer Jeannie Hoffman, a series he's continued to this 40th anniversary season. It concludes this Saturday night, the 19th, at the Woodstock Wine and Deli with David Evans and Tim Wilcox.
Rob Davis?
Rob Davis, I'm sorry. Rob Davis and Tim Wilcox on saxophones, Dan Gaynor piano, and Charlie Doggett on drums.
Exactly.
8 p.m. Woodstock Wine and Deli, and David Friesen is live with you right now, keeping me correct. And welcome, David. Good to have you here, and congratulations on 40 years of these concerts. So tell us, why has it been so important that you've kept these concerts going even after the original inspiration for them, your partner Jeannie Hoffman, passed away?
I think it's been as a tribute to Jeannie. I mean, she was just, in my opinion, one of the great musicians. Her heart, it was just always on her sleeve. People loved her. I think everything she touched musically turned to gold.
Mm-hmm. She was a very versatile player, too.
She was a very versatile player, and great time feel, and just she went to the heart of the note, and you really caught the whole feeling that she was trying to portray in her music. It was both visual and audible, as far as I'm concerned, and she was a dear friend, and so just as a tribute, I wanted to carry on what she initiated. This was her idea when I first met her. Mm-hmm. She's the one. She had been doing this in San Francisco prior to the concerts we did here in Portland. It was her idea. So, yeah, it's just, and this has given me a chance. All the Christmas music that I'm presenting in concert are the traditional carols, but I've reharmonized all the music.
Oh, we're going to have to hear that pretty soon then, David. Yeah, but, you know, I wanted to ask you, first of all, speaking of long and old musical associates, you recently put out a new CD with Glenn Moore, and I remember, was it in the 1970s that you released your first CD, your first duo bass CD with Glenn Moore?
I think it was. It was recorded live at the Portland Art Museum in a concert. And then we had another CD that followed that, and then this is the latest.
So at long intervals, you and Glenn have gotten together, and you recently completed a tour of the U.S. and then one of Europe where that CD was recorded.
Exactly. A little town called Osnabrück. Yeah. At a recording studio just outside of Osnabrück.
So even though you go for years and years without playing with Glenn, it sounds, from this CD anyway, that you fell right back into familiarity quickly.
Well, we had performed at the Avalon, what theater? I forget.
Aladdin?
Aladdin. Was it Aladdin?
That's a large one.
No, it's another theater over in the Northwest. Glenn and I had performed in concert. And this was a couple of years ago. And then we enjoyed it so much. Like you say, we hadn't been playing just intermittently through 50 years of knowing each other. But we're playing more often now. We have a February concert tour in this coming February in Arizona. And then we're going up to Edmonton, Canada for a concert up there. And then we have a West Coast tour planned for September, and then a European tour in 2017.
David is concluding his 40th year of Christmas concerts this Saturday at Woodstock Wine and Deli with his quintet, and that band includes the drummer Charlie Doggett, who's also in your Circle 3 trio with the pianist Greg Goebel. And David, all your bands offer this free and spontaneous interpretation of your tunes, and usually presented without rehearsals. So help us understand how that process can produce such beautiful music.
Well, thanks for the compliment that you think is beautiful music. You can't do this with all musicians, and I think the caliber of musicians that I've been associating myself with, it's easy to make this happen with people like Greg and Charlie Doggett and John Gross and Rob Davis and Tim Wilcox.
So what is it they bring that makes it so easy?
My philosophy about practicing is that everything you learn in the practice room should give you the confidence, the technique, and the pliability, flexibility to be able to take your eyes off yourself so you can listen and respond creatively to what you're hearing. And it just takes listening. It just basically takes that, taking your eyes off yourself, listening and responding creatively to what you're hearing. And jazz is full of good manners. In other words, if you pull up to a stop sign and a Mack truck is coming down to your left, which might be a phrase that someone's playing, you wait until that phrase finishes, then you make your right hand turn behind it. In other words, it's just giving way, yielding the right of way. So it's not my solo or someone else's solo, it's just that we're playing music together. And the whole concept transcends, the whole musical adventure transcends the concept.
And this is a concept or an approach that you began developing in the 1960s when you were in Seattle, jamming with a group of musicians who gathered around a coffee house there that was run by a friend and a fellow bassist, Jerry Heldman, right.
Exactly.
And in fact, you put out a double CD of the music that you and he recorded together subsequently. But what was it about the musicians at that time in that place that helped bring you to the approach that you practice today?
Well, when I first came into playing jazz, the word unique was synonymous with the word jazz. If you were going to play, it was assumed that you were going to be a unique player. And the 60s was one of the most creative times, I think, in the history of jazz music. And there wasn't a lot of emulation going on at that time. It's just everyone had a voice. And so it was with the musicians up in Seattle. There was just a flock of musicians there who all sounded different, very unique, very creative, and they were very into it, much like the loft scene. When I went to New York in the 70s, there was a real heavy loft scene where musicians would gather and have jam sessions. And that was the lure at that time in the 60s. It was just...
And not only you and other Seattle musicians at the time, like Larry Coryell, the guitar player, but also those who came through town, such as Bill Evans, and Randy Brecker was also in Seattle at that time.
He told me about his little brother Michael, who was going to be a great tenor player someday.
That's right. Well, do you think it was the place itself, or was it just a fortunate coincidence that you all happened to be there?
Well, the coffee house name was Longland, run by Jerry, and this is a place that was open 24 hours a day.
Ah, I see.
And
but no booze.
No booze, but musicians flocked there, and there was a great jazz club in town at that time called the Penthouse at the foot of Cherry and First Avenue. And after the musicians would get through playing there, like Cannonball and Ross on, his name was Roland Kirk at the time, they would fall by the club and play. So it was open to all the great artists that came through town, plus all the great musicians. Jimi Hendrix used to come in as a kid and listen to this music at the Longland.
Yeah, well, David Friesen, part of many different histories throughout the last 50 years of jazz music in America, and you're talking live with him here in the Bright Moments Cafe on Portland's Jazz Radio, KMHD, and now it's time to hear what that David Friesen quintet will sound like Saturday night at the Woodstock Wine and Deli, and how his approach can be applied to traditional seasonal melodies like this one. from David Friesen's Christmas album called Morning Star. Jazz Radio KMHD. He's celebrating 40 years of holiday concerts this Saturday at Woodstock Wine and Deli, 8 p.m. Rob Davis, Tim Wilcox, Dan Gaynor, and Charlie Doggett are with him, and David's live with you for just one moment longer. So we're using music to bring some light and warmth to these dark days of winter, but gosh, that didn't sound like the Hark the Herald Angels I was singing in the 5th grade. So what happened to that tune, David?
That's exactly how we sang in the 5th grade.
Well, I should have been in that school.
Well, you know, we don't hold back. In fact, I had one person who had heard this in Europe, and they said, "Well, we can play this all year long."
That's right.
The Christmas melodies are really nice. I had fun reharmonizing the music, and just, you know, everyone's playing. Just because it's Christmas music doesn't mean we hold back, and so
it's jazz, isn't it?
It's jazz, and we're adventurous with all the music, and everyone, I think, plays great on the CD.
We look forward to it live this Saturday, Woodstock Wine and Deli at 8 p.m.
And it's a great venue, if I'm allowed to add this, that to play music in. It's got these high ceilings, and it's just great acoustics there, you know. So and I think this is our 25th year
at Woodstock Wine and Deli.
Yeah, in a row.
Oh, traditions are wonderful, and
they are.
Right under David's voice here, hearing the vibist Tom Collier evoking the mists of Puget Sound, where David got his start. Born and raised, I guess, in the Seattle area, right, David?
Yes, that's right.
Larry Coryell was there too, and he's on guitar on Collier's Fauntleroy Mists here. David, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Len. You've always been very supportive, and I know you have a lot of fans out there that listen to you.
Hey, fans. David Friesen, thank you so much. Jazz Radio, KMHD.